Hello everyone, I'm Elijah Whitaker and I'm the facility engineer for the virtual Houston RTech on the VATSIM network. And in this video I'll be showing you how to get VRC set up for controlling and getting ready to get into your new VATSIM career. To starters, you're going to go over to the Virtual Radar Client website, or VRC as I'll call it from here on, and go ahead and go to download. This link will be in the description for you to access easily. When you're on here, go ahead and click VRC Setup 1.2.6.exe, which is the latest version, and then run the installer. Since I've already set up VRC, I won't be messing around with just how to do the actual installer, but it's pretty straightforward and you shouldn't have any issues. Second, you're going to want to go to whatever your home RTech website is, and if you're in the best one, otherwise known as Houston, you'll be able to go up to your two controllers, documents, make sure you're in the VRC section, and then scroll down here and click VRC 2007.1 files. I'm on Firefox, so I'll open this with Windows Explorer, but you can use any unpacking software you wish here. Now that we have these three files, where the POF file will allow you to recognize other controllers that are around your surrounding airspace, the alias file will give you access to a bunch of different shortcut commands, such as pre-departure clearance or PDC functions. And the sector file is the big one, which will allow you to look at your airspace, view surrounding areas, view the airport diagram, and of course, be able to actively control while knowing where you're at. Back to VRC, the first thing I'd recommend you do is create something similar to this, where in the folder for VRC with the exe, you create something along the names of files, and then another one if you wish with whatever RTech, in case you decide to visit another one later, in this case Houston, and then drop these three files into here. Once you have those three downloaded and able to be read, go and run vrc.exe. I would always recommend running it as admin, just in case any small issues may pop up. When you launch VRC the first time, you won't see any of these profiles at all. You will most likely just see default, or typically something else if you've had a prior copy of VRC installed or anything similar. For now, just go ahead and double click default or click OK, and we'll put it into full screen to get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is head up to File and click Open Sector. And again, navigate to where you had the ZHU sector 2007 and double click that. Now we'll see the Houston RTech airspace and the surrounding areas with VORs and geographical locations that we can recognize. For this tutorial, I'll be zooming in on Austin Bergstrom, but you can choose whatever airport you'd like here to get going. Now that we're here, we're going to go to Settings, General, and in a similar fashion to the sector file, we're going to go ahead and click Select for Alias, double click our alias file, then for POF, do the same thing. While we're in the settings panel, I'll go ahead and show a few things I'd recommend doing right away so you don't forget later. For starters, I recommend clicking Assign Squawk Codes in random order, just so you don't have the same exact number going on and off the entire time you're controlling. Next, if you go to Hotkeys, these don't particularly matter in VRC. If anything, I'd recommend just selecting an aircraft select key as something along Alt or whatever the default is. If we go to airspace, this will be important for whatever you're controlling and whatever position you're controlling. For instance, here we're at Austin Bergstrom, so the ICAO would be Kilo Alpha Uniform Sierra for our arrival fields. And we'll put that same thing in for our departure. Target visibility range is how far you can see aircraft from your center of visibility, which I'll go more into in a second. But as a grounded delivery controller, you'll never need to see more than usually 5 or 10 miles, as the airport will never go past that boundary. So go ahead and drop this all the way down. For our data tags, you can usually leave this alone. There's never anything that typically is required when we use this. Flight strips are in a similar fashion. If you want to use flight strips, which are a little bit more complicated, not really, but they take a little bit getting used to, you can go and mess around with this here. Conflict alerts won't matter for a ground controller. Typically this is for anyone on a radar position such as approach or departure. And then button bar is everything you see up here. I would typically just leave all these checked off unless you have something you specifically don't want. Go and hit apply and OK. So now that we have the basic setup for our settings, we'll go ahead and double check a few other things. For starters, on settings, radar mode. As a ground controller, you'll want to typically run either simple or ground. This will allow you just to view the relative data tag that you need, which will show call sign, speed, and their destination airport. Color profile. This is relatively up to you. I always recommend sticking with the default for the most authentic experience. Park Air is meant to replicate more Australian systems, and STARS is supposed to be the green and black that we see with our current STARS systems for approach. For ground, default should work fine. These other things you won't have to mess around with too much, as we have a couple more things that replicate all these. For view, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting on how you want to set up. As a ground controller, none of this will really matter to you. In fact, I'd almost recommend disabling everything except for static text on the very bottom, which will now show you all your taxiways. And that's pretty much the only thing you should ever need as a ground or delivery controller again. It doesn't really matter to you to be able to see what fixes or VORs are outside of your airspace. In case you're curious, diagrams will show you, and we have Austin on top just so I can do it easily. They will show you departures and different procedures outside of whatever airport you've selected. For example, this purple line represents the Austin 5 departure with vectors to and from syntax. We can go to tools now. Flight strip bay, again, this is up to you if you want to use this or not, but this will auto-populate if you have the correct settings enabled. Controller list, I always leave this open in VRC, since this will tell you any other controller that's online around you that you may need to know about. POF only, the only difference is it'll pull from our POF file that we put in there. On the VATSIM network, this is more or less up to you. During events, we typically use this just so we don't have a higher population of controllers on this list that we don't care about. Aircraft list, it's a pretty similar to the controller one. This will show you aircraft that are both departing and arriving into your airport that you selected on the departures and arrival fields. Comms panel, this will be very important when you first get started. Here at Austin, our position name, for example, on Austin Ground would be AUS_GND. Our frequency is whatever the VHF frequency is for this airport, so this would be 121.900. And Vox server and channel don't matter as much because we do use audio for VATSIM now on the VATSIM network. Typically I will put for Vox channel AUS_GND just because that's what I'm used to, and save that. Now when you're on the network, all you'll have to do is hit TX and RX, which should populate automatically when you click one, basically standing for transmit and receive. And then once you've received a brief from a controller near you, you can then hit prime, which as you saw, will change that. Until you hit this prime button, no one will be able to connect to your frequency and you won't be able to talk on it, so don't forget about that. On the other tools, we have the weather panel, which is pretty straightforward. If you're interested in putting this up directly, you can type, or you can click the F2 button, which you will see pops up down here now as .qd, and then type in whatever your iCal is. For example, Austin, which won't work while I'm not connected. But if you're online, you'll notice that it'll pop up here and give you the weather in a small box. Lastly, we have the incoming chat log. I don't typically need to use the CellCal panel. If someone requests a CellCal check as a ground or on the ground, you can work it out from there. The incoming chat log will display all incoming messages regardless if they're on your frequency and text or if they're from another controller or private message. This is typically useful if you miss PM messages due to the way the boxes are set up. That's about it for setting up VRC. All I'd recommend you do now is File, Save Session Profile As, and we'll call this one Austin Ground. That way you can load in directly right here. Oh, I almost forgot one more thing. Before you save that, come down to this text box and type .vis, space KAUS. That'll set your visibility center to here at Austin. That way, you'll get a 5-mile ring from that point. We can go and save that now. All you'll have to do to connect to the network is go to Connect, type in your call sign, which in this case is, of course, AUS_GND, your real name, your facility, in this case, we are a ground controller, and our rating. When you join the network, you'll be a student 1. For me, I would put student 3 just because that's where I'm at. Your certificate ID is the CID that you were given for your VATSIM account. Password would be the same way. And server, all you'll have to do here is select whichever one you need. There are issues with Sweatbox getting this server to pop up, so whenever you do your first session with a controller, they'll usually help you get that one set up if you're having any issues. I did mention that other things you'll need to do to control with VRC are have 2 other programs, which will also be in the description. Our first is VATIS, which looks pretty complicated, but trust me, it's not. All you have to do is run as admin, and you'll see nothing here when you load up the first time, but that's as simple as I'll delete. All you'll have to do is go to your wherever you save these files, which will be in the same place as wherever you put your other ones. I keep mine in the same root folder just so they don't get lost. All you'll do is double click one of these, for example, Austin. When that opens up, you'll be greeted to this nice little box where you'll have our flows that are dedicated by your facility engineer. In Austin, we typically run South Flow, or the 1.7s. ILS and visual depends on visibility, clouds, and things like that. You can change the ATIS letter automatically, or you can double click, or I shouldn't say double click, left click or right click to go back and forth. When you do this, make sure you do Control S and do similar things to VRC, where you put in all your information, your rating, your server, and automatically check for VATIS updates. The last thing you'll need to get running is audio for VATSIM. You'll have to run this separately from your client. You have them both running at the same time. But you'll launch that. This will open, and once you're connected to the network, once you're connected to the network, all you'll do is click connect, and it'll open it up. And you won't have to do anything else. Just make sure that in these settings, you go ahead and again put your CID, your password, your microphone and output. Mess around with this for a little bit and make sure it pops up around the green. See how I'm talking normally right now. And set a push to talk key, which when you press that, it does what it sounds like. It'll let you talk on the frequency. That's about it for this tutorial. There's a few other niches associated with VRC that you'll typically get used to. For example, opening a flight plan is as simple as double-clicking an aircraft or hitting the F6 button, space, whatever their call sign is. This is typically only used, of course, to give your IFR clearances. Assign squawk will automatically... Nope, I can't do that while I'm offline. It'll give everything the pilot has already put in here: departure field, arrival field, alternate, cruise altitude, their route, their aircraft type, and their flight rules. You'll also notice on VRC when you start your sessions with your mentor that tags will be a little bit different on the ground depending on what they're doing. You might see a little asterisk if they're squawking mode Charlie. You might see just a little line if they're not. That's about it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments or shoot me an email if you're in the Houston TeamSpeak. Have a great day.